Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to episode number 2 of WandaVision. No. The Marvel podcast. We're going to be discussing WandaVision today. Super excited to be here with Hax Dogma, my co-host. It's going to be a great episode because that was a great episode of WandaVision. Holy shit, Chris. The hype is real. That was the most Marvel thing we've seen in a while, right? We've been on a huge friggin' break from all of the movies and whatnot, and we get this. What did you think, dude?
I mean, so the fact that they started with the blip is just magic. I mean, the episode as a whole was incredible, but like this colossal moment in the MCU history, and just that, that reminder that, hey, this is a part of the story. We're here. This is, how we're progressing. Just chef's kiss. So good.
Oh man, it was so good. Yeah, for those of you that are here, like I said, this is the Marvel podcast episode number 2. The first episode we started off because me and Chris made an agreement, of course, after the first 3 episodes we're about to start doing this podcast. Basically what the Marvel podcast is, hybrid live stream / podcast, still working on the podcast end of stuff. But for now, you're going to get the live version of us and get to see our beautiful faces in this TV box that you see on YouTube. Of course, Disney Plus has these 5 to 7 shows coming out this year, Hacks. We have WandaVision, we have Winter Soldier and Falcon Loki, which I think WandaVision is going to tie into, which is going to be pretty sweet. We'll talk about that, a little Easter egg from that later. But yeah, as far as the format, we're going to be reviewing and breaking down, talking about all of the Easter eggs, breaking down the dialogue. Hax is an expert at that. There was some really interesting stuff to look at for that. And yeah, just overall kind of look at what's really going on in Westview, what's going on with their characters, because we got a Westworldy vibey thing going on, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like, again, it all feels like, we're building to this big reveal at the end, or, this introduction of characters, or, just some giant reveal that is going to shape the way the MCU handles Phase 4, and whether that's the creation of the next big bad, or Wanda is just genuinely the next big bad. I think this is going to be a monumental show and start everything with the biggest of bangs.
I think the next big bad has been around for a while. We'll talk about that theory. Me and you talked about it privately, and I actually think there was a huge. I don't think Red Skull was Red Skull in Avengers Endgame. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, this episode, the perspective swap, holy crap. We often, when we're watching Marvel and we're watching Star Wars, anything, we get like the perspective of Luke Skywalker, or we get the perspective of people like Iron Man, this rich guy, superhero, Captain America. But it was really cool to see them start off the episode with this. And it's someone that we've connected before with in the Marvel Universe, Chris. Monica Rambeau. We first got to see her in Captain Marvel 1. Of course, she helped pick Captain Marvel's colors for her suits. Captain Marvel was best friends with her mom. And to see her reform after the reverse snap from Hulk, which we learn about, which is really interesting, Chris. That's an interesting detail. Sets up the whole timeline for the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Multiverse going forward. And it was just so interesting to have that start, like this cold open to that. It was really, really interesting because it's someone we could emotionally level with. We see this strong physical reaction. We see people reappearing everywhere. We see their reactions. And to be put in that moment, we haven't had that yet. We've had people reappearing like superheroes like Black Panther coming to fight Thanos and shit like that. But this is another level that Marvel's taken it to, man.
And it's so wild because like even the showrunners, or the Russo brothers have talked about, how this came to be and how the blip was, and the return of people. And in interviews, they described it as like this, this peaceful thing. They just existed again. And now we see, like, when I watched this the first time, my first thought was The Walking Dead, and him waking up in the hospital and just like the haunting nature of everything that he was discovering, as like we were discovering it through him. And it felt like that so much because like she immediately wakes up and she's in the hospital and she's next to an empty hospital bed. And because there aren't particles reforming next to her, that whoever it was, it had negative consequences, right? Like they were probably not alive. And of course that turns out to be her mother. And it's like, just it's so beautiful. It is probably one of the best sequences in Marvel Cinematic Universe history. Like, it is so impactful for so many reasons. I love it.
A big clap for Marvel, the directors of WandaVision, and Amy Blackfire, who is joining the hype train. Woo! With that donation, she says, "At Hacks, which of your theories were debunked from episode 4? Which do you think could still be right?" We'll save this for a little bit later, right? Because we're going to break down the episode and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for that. And anybody that wants to get their question featured and wants to support us, feel free to drop those donations. We won't say no to that, Chris. We really appreciate that. And of course, it helps the podcast and us very much. But yeah, dude, it was so I wasn't expecting that, right? Like, we had heard in interviews that Elizabeth Olsen was saying, there's this fun perspective swap. And we always thought that maybe we could get this, we kind of knew that Sword was monitoring Wanda and Vision. We didn't know what capacity, but yeah, it rewinds a little bit, and it's just so crazy, dude. This felt like the most Marvel thing that we've had in quite some time, because the first 3 episodes of WandaVision are setting up this premise of this manipulation of Westview, what's going on there. We didn't quite have all the information, but now we have at least a little more piece of that puzzle kind of answering some questions for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was needed that we get this perspective in the sense of the blip reintegrating like us really into the MCU and with a big monumental moment like that, as well as the perspective of us seeing what Sword is doing and what Sword is as an organization, and kind of reveal the veil on a lot of these things, right? That have just been like we know something's up in WandaVision. We know that there's a deeper story, but where Westworld probably would have just like kept us going and all of the answers be revealed at the end. I think it's really good that we're having some of these answers and we're seeing different perspectives and stuff like that.
Now we probably get more of this, right? Because we'll like next episode, we're definitely getting Wanda and Vision again, but we're probably going to have maybe 5 minutes or 4 minutes of the other side, maybe Sword, and then we'll kind of have that contrast going forward to maybe where we have half and half, and then they clash in the last episode where both are together or something like that.
Yeah, 100%, and it's really awesome because I worry that a lot of people view this show, and sorry if you can hear dogs barking outside. I worry that a lot of people are viewing the show as just the gimmick of 90s sitcom or sitcom through the century, and the reality that there is a deeper story is probably lost on more people than that pick it up. Just because people watch shows casually, it's a 22-minute show, people aren't finding through the details with a fine tooth.
Not
comb.
To say there's anything wrong with being a normie or anything like that.
Not at all.
It's I think we become impatient, right? We haven't had Marvel movies for a full year, Chris. People have been really waiting for the next thing, right? We didn't get Black Widow, we didn't get the Eternals. Everything was pushed back, and now it's in front of us. Is so interesting because we're gonna have some Marvel movies this year, including Spider-Man 3, which is supposed to have the appearance of Doctor Strange in it. And then we have the Marvel Multiverse of Madness in Doctor Strange 2. So those two are coming up right after, as WandaVision is kind of setting up this new timeline. And I love it, dude. You said earlier, we finally get to see the real consequences of the snap. Monica wakes up, finds out hey, how's my mom's surgery? Yo, she died 3 years ago from cancer, not even from the blip. So we're seeing these real world consequences, and man, being away for 3 years. We saw that support group in Avengers Endgame, right? In Infinity War, man. We saw America's ass, Steve Rogers, literally lead this group together of people who are experiencing PTSD because of the blip. So we're seeing the inner workings of that, and I thought that was I was just blown away by that, how they started off the episode.
Yeah, 100%. Also in chat, I'm starting a Funko shop, so let me know.
Because he has wearers.
I really like the direction we're heading. The chat's also talked about the integration of Doctor Strange into WandaVision, in the Multiverse of Madness. I think stuff like that, and I think they're with the reintroduction of I forget her name, Darcy
Lewis. Yeah, the last time we saw her was Thor: Dark World.
Yep. and like characters like her coming back into the story is just so good. Like, because right away I didn't remember that she was in Thor. It wasn't until after I was like, oh my god, yeah, duh, like of course, like yeah, that she was, yeah, okay, and so it's stuff like that gets exciting, because her character can really expand, and then we see what happened to her colleagues, and how she grew apart, and really came to the story, and yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it, and I also think it points to more big characters like that are probably going to come in some capacity, and
well, Natalie Portman's coming back in Thor: Love and Thunder, man. Thor 4, she's coming back as Jane Foster, and there's a rumor. I mean,
it'd be pretty cool to see her. Yeah, and
her gains some powers or end up being the female Thor. I mean, I don't think Natalie Portman would be a bad choice for that type of role. Of course, we have Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and they can expand on that, but we haven't seen Jane Foster for a while either. So the introduction of Darcy Lewis as a now astrophysicist, following in the footsteps of her friend, is a pretty big deal, I think, because why are they including her? Yeah, she understands kind of these, multiple realm things that were going on that was actually introduced in Thor: Dark World. That's like, the Aesir. But it's certainly interesting that they're particularly inserting Jimmy Woo, who's from Ant-Man, which is kind of also exploring this multiverse thing, and also Thor.
Yeah, I think definitely more big characters, and I think, of course, because we're heading to the House of M comic series, or more aligned with the House of M comic series with the birth of the children, that leads X-Men immediately being a possibility. Fantastic Four, they also talked about
referenced.
Yeah, they also talked about getting Fantastic Four into the show, or not into the show, but into the Phase 4.
Well, that was referenced in this episode, Chris, the astronaut training program.
Yeah, 100%.
That was a direct reference.
100%, yeah. And SWORD wasn't the Fantastic Four's like program. That's not how the Fantastic Four originally got into space. Mm-hmm. But the idea that there is a lot of things in the MCU that are reshaped to make more sense in the long run. And I think if they introduce the Fantastic Four as a part of SWORD, like a program that they are funding, that would be a perfect way to get Fantastic Four into the MCU without any crazy thing, because they've built SWORD as, this thing that we should now care about, that are proactively creating things instead of just, defense. And I think, boom, that's it. You reintroduce Fantastic Four as a contractor of SWORD, or as someone that's being funded by SWORD, and there you go. Fantastic Four are now in the world, and maybe they'll be good this time.
Let's talk about SWORD a little bit, because we see the SWORD facility and all that. Sentient. We obviously have the SWORD. We have the description of how it is, but it's a little bit of a change up this time, right? It's Sentient Weapon Observation or Response Division, as opposed to Sentient World, which it was Sentient World in the comics. So I find that interesting. We also, we get introduced to director Tyler Hayward, and he struck me as a little bit weird. We're going to talk about him. I think there's something off with him for sure. But in the conversation when him and Monica are strolling through the halls, we get that awesome Easter egg of Maria Rambeau, Photon, the name plaque on the wall. We know that her legacy is going to be a huge impact on, obviously, Monica, her story, and also Captain Marvel. But I just found it so interesting because it looked like the core beliefs, the core like kind of mission statement of SWORD is diverging, right? It went away from these observation missions and these man missions to more AI and weaponry, and that sounds more like kind of some of the stuff that we were seeing, in Winter Soldier, with AIM in Iron Man 3, and I can't hack all the hexagonal shapes that we see in his office
everywhere,
and on the carpet, and
everywhere.
I don't know, man. He was like. And then the Skrulls, of course, on Jimmy Woo's whiteboard, that was mentioned. Like, why in the hell is that there? Because we know Secret Invasion's coming out in, 2022? So that's another one that's coming out after Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, man. And so that was kind of odd to me. I'm not saying that Director Hayward is a Skrull, but I don't know, man. The hexagon, the pictures on his wall were literally 6 pictures in the form of a hexagon. Of course, in my breakdown video, if you guys want to go check it out, I talked about Mephisto as the main villain in WandaVision. I'm not saying the 6 pictures on the wall are a reference to 666 and Mephisto, but hexagons are 6-sided, man, and I don't know. It's kind of throwing me off.
Yeah, I mean the only really. AIM, their logo is 6-sided in the comic series or the video game series or one of those. But, so right away, a lot of people drew a conclusion from the hexagons to AIM. The Infinity Stones, are 6 of them, 6 singularities that ultimately, led to the creation of the stones. So it could be that. They mean something, right? And ultimately, there's also in
the bookshelf for all the where Doctor Strange is getting all the information in the books. The bookshelves in Doctor Strange 1 are also in the shapes of hexagons, where all like the information is. So that is also kind of like a big connection, right? It's like all throughout the universe, like the beginning of the universe with the 6 stones, and then all these different cultures have taken the influence of the hexagon, and Hive and all of that.
I love hexagons. Like I think the hexagon is the perfect shape. Like I've talked about this for years, and I love that this is now in the show. Like the front of my book, Cyclic, is literally a hexagon because it's like the perfect shape to show sci-fi without like explicitly saying this is sci-fi. Like it's just such a unique and like futuristic shape. I don't know why. There's so much to do a study on it, but yeah, hexagons rock.
Bees are pretty smart, right? They use it. They use it in their homes. Why don't they use the shape of a circle? It's probably to reinforce their base. I don't know, man. Like the hexagonal thing, obviously it was on Jimmy Woo's whiteboard. He's asking the question, right? Like we have all of these questions of, what do we know? It says a 5-mile radius. We know that there's a hexagon shape style of, cosmic background radiation, which is so interesting because that was referenced when Wong was telling Tony and Doctor Strange and all of them about the Infinity Stones and that Thanos was coming. So that's another like important reference to these stones are super powerful. I don't know if the Mind Stone or the Reality Stone or the Tesseract is connected to all of this, but through the commercials, like that soap commercial featured the Tesseract, so it's possible that there is a connection to the stones and all of this. And Thanos is gone, right? We don't really know like someone stolen any of the Infinity Stones. If there's some kind of like watch, like Guardians of the Galaxy. One person takes a stone here, one person takes a stone there, because that was kind of what happened in the comics, right? Like they made this watch, and certain superheroes were looking after specific stones.
Yeah, and and the other thing with the stones is like, Wanda was created from the Mind Stone. Or her magic was created from the Mind Stone, and the implication of that is huge. It's infinite, really. Honestly, like there could be so many things or so little things that she can do, and it's really they're in a spot where they could design that however they want. Based on her training or how she unlocks other abilities in her set. But yeah, like the way she got her magic through Von Strucker and at the end
that's why I found it so weird that they showed that commercial in episode 2 as well. And was that referencing the Time Stone? Like I was kind of confused because like I felt like the toaster might have been a symbol for the Reality Stone because there was the red light, and then like the third episode we got the Tesseract, and maybe then I don't know if we got one this episode, but there's another 5 episodes. So they have time to kind of do more episodes if they wanted.
Yeah. I think in with the Mind Stone and her creation throughout the MCU, like there's this big, and I think I don't know, me personally, I had forgotten all about this until I started rewatching stuff. But there is so much fear around Wanda and what she can do. We see that when she accidentally blows up the side of that building. And I forget the movie now. But essentially, in Civil War, and causes basically all of that. Causes the Accord that has hey, maybe we should have some regulation. No, we shouldn't have some regulation. Let's fight it out at the airport. And
Sokovia Accords were the reason they had that huge fight, right? There's a huge disagreement on that.
Yeah, and so but essentially, like, and Wanda and Vision have these discussions about, like, they will always fear you. Like, they don't see you as I see you. I see you as, like, who you are, and they see you as the magic that, radiates from your hands. And I think that that's so awesome, in the sense that we've kind of forgotten about that. Like, that's not a point for anyone to debate anymore. It's just, there was a bigger threat, so we dealt with the bigger threat, and Wanda still being something that they fear is still probably on the table. So I wonder if that fear is going to come back into the story more as they realize, hey, it's Wanda doing this. The final quote of this episode is literally saying, "It's all Wanda." Like, oh my God, it's her. Like, she's doing this.
I still think that's a red herring because, I mean, look at what happened.
100%.
What happened with look at the police officers. They had their mind wiped. That was, I mean,
yeah.
Is that Wanda too? I mean, I don't know.
She could. We've seen her do that before. In the sense of when they needed to evacuate Sokovia. But
and she manipulated all the Avengers. I mean,
yeah.
she was brainwashed, obviously, by Ultron. You know what I mean?
And there's two sides of this, right? There's a side where I hope it's not her. I hope she is genuinely being manipulated. Because she's the good guy, because we want her to be good, because we want her to have some amazing story of triumph and stuff like that. But like seeing her dead husband like that, like, genuinely shocked her, right? As if she had lost concentration, the veil came down, and it was just like this such a heartbreaking moment. Like, my wife started tearing up because it was like, what would you do? Like, if you had the ability to do this, to genuinely believe and live a life with your husband again, like, what would you do to make that happen? And man, I don't know. Grief and loneliness is a hell of a thing. And I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't control an entire town. But like, if I could bring my wife back and all I would have to do is like control a town and be the bad guy just to have more time with my wife, fuck that town, dude. Like, I don't know, but
yeah, I know what you're saying. It's super interesting, dude, because like we see the reaction, right? Like we see the result after she expels Monica. Like we see Vision come in. What's wrong, honey? And then we see a big fucking hole in his head. And then, she looks down. She's not accepting that moment. And then she goes, oh, okay. And then Vision looks fine again. So we obviously know that her magic is at work here. But I mean, I wonder. I spoke about this in my breakdown video that I dropped yesterday after I had my 12 copyright disputes with Disney and Marvel. Extra 6 hours I would have had to up way earlier.
So
I'm not trying to complain too much here, but I found it really interesting. Did you, man? I don't know, dude. I just think that like, yeah, she's in this grief state, but what if she went there, okay? What if she wandered into Westview? I just think it's so weird that it's in New Jersey, first of all. New Jersey Devils, the whole legend and folklore behind that, man. And, like, what if she went there to make a deal with Mephisto and she kind of got, like, these parameters of how everything is going to work? Like, who's to say that Mephisto would, not break the contract? You know what I mean? He's someone literally sows chaos. He's literally trying to harvest souls. I mean, like, he's maybe in a weakened state trying to take advantage of this situation and make a power grab after Thanos. It certainly would make sense that I think it would be a smarter play for him to do it now that Thanos is gone, because Thanos was king, dude. Who's going to go against Thanos?
And honestly, here's the thing: like Mephisto would, like, his goals and Thanos' goals would never align, right? Thanos wanted to just delete half of the universe for balance, right? Mephisto wants them souls, like he needs them souls. If those souls don't exist, like, he's assumingly not getting them. If he's just blipping them out of existence or snapping them out of existence, they're gone, right?
The devil is always tied to the soul, right? Like this kind of battle of good and evil. We should talk about that crazy Red Skull theory. Do you think we should talk about that now?
Go for it, yeah.
Man, I don't know. Okay, chat. Well, let's put a 1 in chat if you think this is not this is crazy. Put a 2 if you don't think it's crazy. Okay, let's talk about this. I'm gonna ask you first, Chris. Do you think Red Skull, when Hawkeye and Black Widow are there, if that's actually Red Skull?
Okay, so
Because I think it's possibly Mephisto now. Okay, because
yeah,
listen,
yeah, yeah.
listen, it would benefit Mephisto for one of them to get the stone and get it back to, like Red Skull knew about what was going on, right? This Red Skull character. But why is he in a cloak like he's a demon? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
floating around and shit. Okay. Is that really where Red Skull was ejected? I don't
Here's
know,
the
man.
thing.
I think that might have been Mephisto playing tricks, dude.
Yeah, in offline we've talked about this as well.
This could be a crackpot theory, by the way, everyone. I
But it
possibly could have had too much coffee on this one.
but at the same time, not at all, right? Like this could genuinely be a really, really good theory. Essentially, when I saw Red Skull on the planet Vimron, wherever the Soul Stone was, it really felt odd because I was like, why do we care about this character? Why is he coming back? And then you look back and you realize, oh, okay, he's there specifically because he touched the Tesseract and he was punished for his villainy. Destined to be the guide on this planet. I think it's called a Stone Guard or something like that. Where he essentially just will always lead people to the stone and give guidance, but can never do anything else. Now he can be released, and as soon as the stone is given to somebody, in case it was once given to Thanos, and then he was released from that bondage. And so that was interesting. But ultimately, yeah. So I agree. It felt really off that he was there, and if it was Mephisto, kind of like wanting to trade souls for this power or something like that, I think that would make sense. But at the same time, I also think it probably was just Red Skull because we only know of two people that have ever killed themselves or given their soul for the stone. Vormir, yeah. On Vormir. That have given their it just wouldn't be efficient. Like if I was the devil, I would be like at I don't know, somewhere in New Jersey to get as many souls
manipulate
as possible.
The most powerful Avenger. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I like the theory a lot, and I thought it was so weird when I saw him. I was just like, why him? Like, why is he here? But then if you look more into it, it kind of makes more sense. And at the same time, I thought that, because after Maximoff gives her life for the Soul Stone in the time heist, I was like, is he just out there? Like, is he just a bad guy again, just roaming wherever he wants to roam? But then, of course, they explain that later when Captain America goes and gives the Soul Stone back, trapping him on Vormir.
Yeah.
So, assumingly he's still trapped up.
Chat, I didn't see too many twos in the chat, so y'all think I'm crazy, but whatever. I can level with that. I'll just shame myself for this one. But I don't know. It just makes I know it's kind of corny, but the New Jersey Devils literally relocated from Colorado, have a hockey team in New Jersey, and their mascot is the devil. There's a huge folklore in Jersey about this. The devil was down in Jersey, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, yeah, the devil was down in Georgia, but the devil's in Jersey? I don't know.
Yeah, it's that famous song, Devil Went Down to Jersey.
Pardon me, my allergies are super bad today, everyone. I don't know why. It's the end of January. There's no pollen around, but yeah, I think there could be a connection there. I think I gotta do a bigger video on it. I just think it's so interesting that Mephisto is a big antagonist for Spider-Man and also Doctor Strange in the comics. So I'm just trying to think of the possible big bads that could span multiple movies. You know what I mean? The Skrulls for sure, because they can become imposters, essentially become Avengers. And we saw that on the Jimmy Boo's was question on the whiteboard, is there Skrulls? We don't know actually who's involved in this, but that feels too much of a signal of oh, okay, yes, that's who it is. It feels like too much of a red herring for me.
Yeah, I think ultimately, in terms of big bad, I hope the Skrulls aren't one. Just because of the progress that they had in Captain Marvel. We kind of see them beaten down and then come back as they have a shot to really be good people and have a civilization. In terms of big bads, I think Mephisto is definitely one. With the introduction of Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom, definitely one. The movies, Fantastic Four movies, have sucked. If the MCU can do one thing, it is make Doctor Doom one of the greatest villains ever. Like, because he is so good. And he ties into so many different stories. And Galactus, also another big bad that could, theoretically exist in this story or in the phase
It would be
4 of the
interesting if
MCU.
they did introduce the negative zone and somehow Mephisto was because we know the MCU is making structural changes from the comics. There's never going to be a 1-to-1 adaptation, but they're pretty good though. Like, they've done a pretty good job at the core values of like what happens in Infinity War and Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that. Like, they've done a pretty good service to a lot of really popular elements of these comics.
Yeah, 100%. And I really like how they diverge, because it feels like it's creating its own thing. I get a lot of comments. It's like, you clearly have never read the comics, or something like that. Just like people being mean on the internet because it's anonymous. But it's like, I genuinely thought that her boys were going to be one boy and one girl, to remind her of her own sibling, but of course it turns out to be two boys, meaning that just like the comics, it's going to be Speed and Wiccan. But yeah, like stuff like that, I really like that they diverge and that there's more possibility for just unique storytelling as opposed to just rehashing what they've already done.
Let's get back to a little bit more of the episode, Chris. We got another Easter egg, the red toy helicopter in episode 2. Like, we knew that was some sort of sword.
Yeah.
There was an actual helicopter that crashed in Westview. We now know it's this cosmic radiation field. The exact term is CMBR, cosmic microwave background radiation, which has been around since the Big Bang, of course, in the Infinity Stones. But Darcy finds a bunch of it on that physioscope where she finds out that, what's happening with Wanda and Monica. There's, these sitcoms being displayed. So I find that really interesting, because that same energy that was around when the stones were formed and the universe was formed is there in Westview. Like, that's a pretty big friggin' deal, man. Like, that is hinting at us that either an Infinity Stone is being used, or that type of power is being mimicked, or there's a being or someone with that has been around since that time in the universe, like this old being that could possibly be pulling strings behind the scenes or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. And CMBR, like, that's everywhere. Like, right now, there's levels of CMBR that are all around us. And you can actually see, like, it's something like 1% of static in old television was CMBR static. And there's also like this really cool, in the early observation of space where, these two scientists were trying to like hear different aspects of space, and they would always have this like hum in the background, and they legitimately thought it was just like pigeon droppings in their giant like megaphone of a observational tool. And that was ultimately what led to the discovery of CMBR. And there is always CMBR around us. The presence of more links to the creation of the universe, which means that she could have genuinely just created her own universe. Like, what they're telling us is that, hey, there is this elevated look at this cosmic energy, and the only place this comes from is the origin of the entire universe. So yeah, it could point to ancient ethereal tools, or it could point to just the creation of a new universe, which I think is really cool. I mean, I hope it points to a big bad and not just Wanda genuinely creating her own universe. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I guess either way, I like it.
So we know this is a 5-mile radius. With Jimmy's whiteboard, what we know, it says triangulated to Westview, which is pretty interesting. Triangulation in the Bermuda Triangle. We talked about that a little bit, how that's kind of connected to, what the Doctor was talking about, going on vacation and whatnot. That was kind of cool. But then the what we don't know, let's get back to that section, because we talked a little bit about the hexagonal shapes. That could be connected to Agnes, who is the only one without an ID on that working storyboard that they're trying to figure out. So that's pretty interesting. And we know that director Hayward sent Monica, interestingly enough, on this missing persons case. So I'm wondering if it's Dottie, who is not even there on the board, if it's Ralph, who's where's Ralph at? He could certainly be Mephisto, and that could be maybe a reveal in the next episode. They introduce this husband character, and he's someone that's recognizable. And we're like, okay, that's this person or someone working for Hydra or something like that. But it's certainly interesting because we don't have an exact background in this character. There's no ID for Agnes, which kind of lends to, I think it kind of lends to the theory that she's Agatha Harkness. Like, she's super old.
Oh, yeah.
She's a witch. That kind of starting to really get some traction now, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, come on. Like, she's what, the third most shown character in her sitcom? Like, well, I guess I'm assuming, but
I think it's pretty accurate.
They would, yeah. I mean, they're literally SWORD, the organization that can find people. They're working with all the agencies. Like, they should be able to find who that is, and they can't, right? So I think that speaks volumes to what it is. And, in terms of missing person, I think, yes, she's Agatha Harkness. And I think Jimmy Woo looking for that missing person probably points to Ralph, the only person that we can't seem to find inside of the sitcom show.
Protection as well, which is interesting.
Yeah. And ultimately, if Agatha Harkness is in the show, 100,000%, it is in relation to Mephisto, which, like right now I'm calling it in the comics, like the creation of the children were linked to Mephisto. Because
they were actually created from created from his soul fragments, right?
Yeah, because he couldn't recreate naturally or something like that. So he needed that, but yeah, and that may genuinely be like one for one what's happening right now, where in exchange for maybe in exchange for, oh my god, that would actually be so good.
Oh, here we go.
Oh my god.
Drop the theory, man. Drop it.
Yeah, so what if Wanda, was approached by Mephisto and said, "Hey, I can bring your dead husband back if you give me these children. Like, if you agree to do this, if you go through these steps and create this world and use your Mind Stone powers, if you create this world and allow it to have children through you with my essence, then yes, I will grant your husband another life." And until then, it's just like her playing through these sitcoms until, that finality moment where he gets recreated by Mephisto. I think that would be insane.
I mean, the devil's in the details, dude. Like, why did Dottie say that? And why did Agnes immediately reply to Wanda after, "That's not the only place he is"? Like, why did she say that? I mean, those to me feel like the two lines that are not throwaway. Like, it's like those seem kind of odd.
Yeah, devil's in the details. I mean,
I actually really like that theory you just dropped, dude. That would make sense. Like, the more and more I think about it, is like that she was approached. Like, gotta know, like, this, like the common trope of making a deal with the devil is not a good thing. There's like always some sort of bad conclusion that is wrapped up. You know what I mean? Like, there's always some like fork in the road that ends up screwing you over.
Yeah, 100%. But like, man, if your significant other died and you just like couldn't do anything and you were just ultra powerful, that loneliness and grief and the possibility that you could somehow create a world for yourself where that didn't happen, like, man, wouldn't you take it? I feel like I would take it. I feel like I would make that deal with the devil. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I think, yeah, when I was working on and speaking of theories that went wrong, like my theory video, talked about the subpixel theory and what Vision and what SWORD was doing.
You're talking about the end of credits, right, Hax?
Yeah. And it was like, it was like 4 a.m. in the morning, and I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, man, I just cannot figure this out. Like, something is up. I woke her up because she's amazing. And I was like, I can't figure this out. And then like, we're sitting there talking. I'm like, oh my God, what if Wanda made a deal with Mephisto? But at that point, I just had to finish my video. And then of course, like now I think 100%, 100,000%, Wanda is probably in control. But probably made a deal with the devil because of the grief, because of how grief stricken she was. Like,
that always happens too, dude. Like, you'll be in the middle of a video, you've recorded your audio, you've like edited it. You've got all your like video clips and you've got your pictures set up for your nice slideshow. And then by like minute 10 of 12 of your video, like, oh shit, I wish I added this, man. And it doesn't fit with the frame of your video. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I just did this theory. And then you're like, oh, like this could have been like something really great that I could have talked about.
Amy Blackfire talks about the creepy theory that Wanda might actually be reanimating Vision's body. I think 100% that's happening. Like, I think that's genuinely his body.
I think that's confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not, that would be kind of weird. It would be an interesting creative choice to include that instead of just like a regular body. I think the inclusion of that clear wound that he got from Thanos points to that is genuinely his body. Which means, man, what did she do? Did she just like, you know, after Thanos was defeated, did she just like take his body and dip? Like, man.
Yeah, we like that is like, why is Wanda in Westview is a huge question. Like New Jersey, you know what I mean? All of these clearly it's an interesting location. Like I said, I had to make that funny hockey reference at the end of my breakdown, New Jersey Devils, because I'm Canadian. But yeah, there is something really weird about that. Like I assume we're gonna find out more about that. I want to do some shout outs in the chat, by the way. Fairy Doom, by the way, is your wife, right, Chris? She's in the chat. She, like, let's give her a shout out. She does streaming on Facebook, right?
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
She's a gamer. So do a little applause. We got Amy Blackfire, Marika. We have also Jess, Anthony Shaddix. I got to get my other mic here because it's on the other monitor. I'm trying to scroll through the chat. We have Anthony. I can talk about Kate Bertinsky, Marcelo. What's going on, Marcelo? We have it's a bunch of awesome people in chat. If anybody else is just lurking, that's cool too. You don't have to join the conversation in the live chat, but we appreciate you. And for everyone that's here, if you're enjoying the conversation, make sure you go check out Hax's channel. All the links are in the description of the video, Twitter, link to his YouTube, and also my social media. We love to chat, guys. Let us know like questions, anything that you would like to be featured on the pod. And just Marvel's where it's at right now. So that's kind of where you can find everything really easy in the description of the video. And of course, if you want to subscribe, hit that join button, support the channel, all of that, like button, it's all there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you for the shout out, Amber. You know, great job the other day waking up and being a supportive wife. Love you so much.
Yeah, thanks for entertaining Chris's theories at 4 a.m., dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean, there's those questions seem like we're going to get some of those questions answered, right? Like the is Vision alive one? That was the only one without a question mark. And I think we got the answer that he's not alive.
Yeah. And, you know, we kind of knew that. Like, he was only animated because of the Mind Stone.
He was never really alive, but he's not the old Vision.
Yeah. But again, like, there's reason to believe that a form of him could exist again. You know, whether through Mephisto or genuinely through her powers. You know, and I think there's kind of an interesting commentary about AI there as well. Like, you know, you recreating, I mean, rest in peace, Tony Stark, but, you know, the idea of like being able to create a AI similar to what he was, you know, because they have that really touching moment where it's like, I just feel you. Like, whereas people would view Wanda from the outside as just her magic, people would view Vision from the outside as just the stone that controlled him, you know, that gave him life. And, you know, seeing that there is more behind him and a shared experience that ultimately adds to this perception of a human, like, you know, there's a lot of reasons that he could genuinely come back. But yeah, I don't know. Right now, I think he's dead.
It just felt like her reaction after like Monica was obviously trying to reach through to her, right? Like she said something that was offensive in that moment, you know, bringing up an old trauma, the death of her brother Pietro by the hands of Ultron. I mean, if you were poking the bear at me and you said, hey, Kyle, like, what about the death of your dog, you know, when you were on your 19th birthday and you kept poking me, I would obviously get upset about it. I'm not saying that that's what happened in that scenario, but obviously she's very sensitive in this moment. You know what I mean? So like there's this kind of fine line of what you can cross and what you can say to her in this whatever's going on here. Like I said, I think we both believe that she's being manipulated in some sort of way. But yeah, I think that, you know, and Vision too, like his concern in the previous episode, he had a lot of anxiety about the health of Wanda. Like he was like, talking to the doctor. He's like, ooh, that baby's growing really fast. And then he had the conversation with Agnes and Herb. And he was like, hey, like, why did she have no home? Like, who is this Monica person? Or who is this Geraldine person? Can she harm Wanda? So there's these interesting things that we don't know that I think that will, because the next episode I think will probably mostly be Wanda and Vision, right?
Yeah, I hope so. And I think like her rewinding time and making those edits, right? Like from the outside of the bubble, or the hexagon realm that they're in, that, we don't see the radio explode, right? It's just a blip. Similarly, we don't see, they probably don't see the time rewind. And they also probably don't see like some of the stuff where Vision kind of comes to a level of understanding that something's not right with the world. So it's really interesting also to think about why it's being broadcast at all. And who's broadcasting it?
Why sitcoms?
Why? Yeah. Like, again, I think sitcoms because she grew up with kind of an idolization of American life. And her exposure to that was was through TV. So it could be that and her recreating the perfect American upbringing, possibly linking to that. But yeah, ultimately, I don't know. I think that there's a definite level of involvement by Agatha Harkness posing as Agnes. And all of it was to create these children. And I think if that's true, then of course it involves Mephisto. And, maybe Agatha is the one that created this world or something like that, or just convinced Wanda that she should. And then at the same time, like, I don't know why she is like lying to herself. Like, if she made this deal, why does she show like two different levels of understanding? One where she's like, I don't know why I'm here.
She seems super aware one moment, and then another moment she seems like she doesn't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, well, I don't know what today's date is. I don't know why you can't process things at the speed of sound. And, and then at the same time, she's like, no. And then just rewinds time, like, and understands, like, so there's like these battle and conflicts inside of Wanda, which I think is super, super interesting. And, probably relates to the grief or it relates to the manipulation. Whereas like she's probably either compartmentalizing this and doesn't want to see most things, and wants to process things as something that feels good to her in her world, or it is simply Agatha controlling the strings much, much more than we think that she is.
I mean, it's pretty. Can we talk a little bit about some of the upcoming trailers? Like, there is some pretty interesting nuggets with it. I don't want to spoil too much, but we do see an interaction. Like, I think maybe the next, because the one thing that's super interesting is in one of the trailers, it seems like a ton of kids are trick or treating outside in Westview.
Yes.
And we had in episode 2, obviously the magic show, the children theme, which we talked about as kind of the main theme for that. There's no children in Westview, man, until Wanda and Vision have their kind of merry birth. But
yeah.
I wonder if the next episode is really going to show this, because there's an interesting interaction in the trailer where Vision is in his green, yellow, and red suit. You know what I mean? Like the classic comic colors. And then Agatha, or I keep on saying Agatha, Agnes is in the car and she's wearing a witch outfit. Like, you know what I mean? Could they be any more over the top with it? But she seems like in that moment, in that conversation, like she's maybe a bit confused too. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if the next episode, if they do like the Halloween trick or treating in the 1980s episode, it seems like that could be like, they could do like that ET moment. They could, you know what I mean? The Halloween moment, doing that. They could maybe do kind of a focus on that, because like 1980s movies, that's an iconic one, right? So, and that's where we'll be going with the next sitcom at least. So it'll be interesting to see where they take those influences from the next episode.
Is the next one the 80s or the 90s? I was thinking it was the 90s, but maybe the 80s. Yeah,
because this episode focused on leveling the timeline of where Sword was catching up, because there's 9 episodes in total, right?
Yeah,
right. So next episode is episode 5, 1980s, then episode 6, 1990s, then the 2000s, 2010, and then we have So wait, so that would be catching up to. It's 9 episodes. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and this brings back a question that I saw in the chat earlier about, you know, how they're gonna, what they're gonna do when, you know, we catch up. And I think that we're gonna see much more. I think we're gonna see like a Modern Family in the 2000s, which I think would be
That'd be killer.
amazing. Yeah, Modern Family is so good, and such a, you know, benchmark sitcom, um, you know, in the modern era. And I think that yeah, like as we get closer to the date of just being today's date, that we'll see much more of Sword, and we'll see much more of like the progress that they're making on the outside, and probably like, you know, from the trailers we can also see a little bit more agency inside of Vision, where again he's exploring, you know, what he knows to be true, and it's like, you know, maybe this isn't a good spot. Maybe we're not doing something that's good. And I think that that's really interesting in terms of theory crafting as well, because it's like, you know, if Wanda did reanimate him and he does have much more of his own qualities, then he has the good qualities, right? Like he has the logical thinking. It's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have made a deal with the devil. Maybe that's where we messed up at, right? You know, and so, and that's manifesting as his questioning of reality, I think. Yeah,
Because Vision
maybe.
was pretty curious, but it seems like he's pretty anxious and worried about what's going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty odd. We got another donation. Cyclops is better than Wolverine. Listen, man, I'm happy that you're in my chat, but Wolverine is my all-time favorite character. All this.
Ooh.
All right, you're still cool though. He says, and thank you very much for the donation, by the way. We really appreciate it. You guys are awesome today. He says this show proves Tony was right and Steve was wrong, and he says he's talking about keeping her isolated until they figure out what to do with her in Civil War. Pretty interesting. Consider, I mean, Vision is cooking borscht. Remember that he's making soup, and then Vision and her have that conversation, and Tony and. Because I mean, look at what happened, right? I mean, she killed some innocent people. That's just what happened.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel so like I really hope they don't, like, to say that she's mentally you know, unstable, which I think it can be perceived depending on how they tell the story. I think it's unfair. Like she was given a shit hand growing up, and you know, turned to Hydra for literally the last stand effort to do something to protect your country. Loses her brother to the manipulation of Ultron, then tries to join the good guys, and you know, doesn't understand her own powers entirely, and she is perceived as like this nuclear bomb that could go off at any moment. Like she has been given such a terrible hand, and I think she's making the best of it, right? You know, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is mentally unstable, but at the same time, like maybe that shouldn't be a bad thing, right? Maybe all of us are mentally unstable in some way that is perceived by the outside.
I think both Tony and Steve are right and wrong in their own ways. You know, like it's not 100% one way or the other. You know what I mean? It really, like we see clear consequences of both situations, not being able to be free and also living with more restriction, right? Like, because people will take more advantage of you if you like. Look, like I don't want to use Wall Street as an example too much right now, but look at how many billions and billions and trillions of dollars rich people have literally stolen from people for years, from hedge funds and stuff, because people allowed it to happen. And now people are fighting back with the, you know, as you know, against the system. And we see that things need to be structurally changed. So I don't think Tony was wrong or right, and I don't think Steve was right or wrong. It's a little bit in the middle for both of them, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And in, you know, in chat, so speaking about her grieving, like, yeah, that's something that we've talked about a lot. That's something that I've talked about since episode 1. I genuinely think that she is 100% the grieving wife, doing whatever it takes to, you know, to find a bit of happiness and closure, and you know, find something that makes her not as lonely as she is right now. And that grief is you know, amazing, right? In the most terrible way of amazement.
I think too, like we look at what's happened with Wanda, and like, especially for women, you know what I mean? We like, it's often like grief and trauma is often minimized in women. And I think that's something we got to be very careful about. Like, I mean, look at what, like, she was experimented on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty big friggin' deal. And I'm not saying that, you know, Pietro didn't experience that. But look at, you're right, man. She had a raw deal. She's experienced a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, so it's like I feel bad because, like, again, I feel that they're going to probably shape this around with what happened in episode 4, right? Where it's like, wow, we know this to be Wanda again. You know, the outside perception is going to be, again, her being this nuclear bomb, and, you know, people fearing her because they don't understand what's happening. And maybe, depending on how this shapes, maybe it's justified. Maybe she did make a deal and made a terribly bad choice, and, you know, that, you know, consciousness, judgment level of thinking should be, you know, judged, I guess. But yeah, ultimately, I hope that she has some kind of good ending, and she's not just simply being created to be the big bad because of the things that have happened to her.
Yeah. Chat. I want to hear one. If you think is Wanda, put a 1 in chat. If you think Wanda is alone in this, put a 2. If you think Wanda is being manipulated. I'm really, really curious to see your answers. I think it's number 2. I think there's more than, yeah, Chris put a 2 right away. Yeah. So 2. Yeah. I mean, come on now. We're getting sitcoms. And there's hexagons.
I mean, it's got to be Mephisto. It's got to be Mephisto. Dude.
Oh, like, man, are we just going down with the ship? It's just Mephisto?
No, because it could also be a character called Nightmare. It could also be a character called Hive, which could be a big bad at some point in X-Men. And I think ultimately, I think this might be, you know, the best point to integrate X-Men into the story, or like we talked about before, the Fantastic Four. And there's so many different ways to tell the story. I thought, and speaking about the theory video, I thought that, you know, the border and the pixel effect showed a clear delimitation between Wanda's magic, right, and the red aura that it always has, and the force field that was essentially her reality, right? You know, there's like this clear pixelization effect to show where the town is and who's going in and out and stuff like that. And then there is Geraldine being thrown out and us seeing the particle effects of her magic. So, you know, I think it could point to her creating this world because of the CMBR and how that kind of affects like televisions and you know, old timey TVs. So they could be creating something like that, where it's like they're able to know this is a pocket reality or Wanda's creation because of the effect and stuff like that in the CMBR. And they could be making some kind of play with the pixelization effect with that, ultimately leading to this being Wanda's magic. But at the same time, I think it still shows technology because of like what it is. And as such, it could be a third party. Like in my video, I talked about it possibly being S.W.O.R.D. that created this world. But, you know, now definitely not. And now probably a third party or, yeah. Either
there's a big conversation about free will in the chat. I'm just going to highlight some awesome comments. Jess says she's very powerful, so using her trauma to manipulate her would be an effective strategy to use her. Then Darren says she's an Avenger. She wouldn't choose evil.
Yeah, never.
Never. I especially after what happened with the Sokovia Accords and her killing all those innocent people. She felt genuine remorse for that. Amy says, agreed, but when she was introduced in the comics, she was a villain. I know that the MCU is not the comics, but she was still not always a good guy. Yes, there is gray area with that. Then Darren replies, yes, she's getting what she wants, but no, she's not acting alone of free will. And then your wife says, this isn't harming anyone except herself, learning to cope healthy for her loss. But would she do this alone? I don't know. And that's where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, like would grief cause her to go this far? I'm just like, Wanda's smart. You know, she's been through a lot. She's had a lot of life experience. I'm at this point where I'm like, why now? Why now is the question.
I mean, probably loneliness and grief and time, right? Like after the funeral service for Tony, she's just standing there. She says that she feels Vision still. Like she understands that some portion of his soul or something lives on inside of her, in some kind of way, and may have pursued that, may have wanted to see, if she could recreate him herself. And the form that takes, I'm not sure whether they need an entire city to create that illusion, maybe. But at the same time, Faradum, it isn't harming anyone. I don't know if we can say that, right? Like, I think now that we know what the level of control, and if we revisit those scenes where, they have the dinner in episode 1 where the woman is literally staring at Wanda, telling her to stop it. My husband. So here's the whole thing. So I think that in Wanda's perfect world, nobody is getting hurt, right? Nobody can get hurt by Wanda because that's not what she wants. She doesn't want to hurt people.
Look at how aggressive she was with Monica and Agent Franklin.
Because they were strangers,
yeah.
right? But she doesn't want to hurt people, right? She wants this thing, but that's the importance of the red blood when Dottie cuts her hand. It's like oh shit, like this is, people can accidentally get hurt. And it's the same thing where Dottie's husband is choking, and this natural thing, this thing that would happen in any circumstance, outside of the park or inside of the park,
talking Westworld again
here.
Yeah,
and so it's like this natural thing where she realizes that there is a level of control in Wanda, and this is her thing. And ultimately saying like, hey, you need to stop this. You have control of this. You need to stop this now. And yeah, I mean, I think it's, yeah. So again, I think it speaks to a level of control that she wants, or that she has. And the people that are a part of this simulation and a part of this world understand that they are being played. Like, they have some level of agency. We see that foreshadowed. Or we see that with the dinner party. We see that with the doctor trying to leave the town, where he's like, hey, I want to leave, but I can't. And we also see it with Herb, where he's like, hey, all of us are blank. And then Agnes, of course, stops him, and then, ultimately doesn't let him finish. But he was probably going to say, all of us are, playing a role, or all of us are trapped here, or all of us are something.
By the way, chat, if you see all of those awesome emojis in chat, we have Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian helmet. I am the Fandalorian, so we got to have that. Ahsoka, we have Witcher symbol in there. We have Chewbacca and the hype train. And we get a few more people to hit that join button. Hacks. We can start adding some Marvel ones. Maybe we can add a Vision one or a Wanda one in there. I believe I think it's 4 or 3 more people come up, sign up and hit that join button. We get more emojis. You also get a badge in chat. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I think with 3 more, hit that join button. $4.99 a month it starts at. Extra bonus content on the channel and all that. We get another emoji. I'm thinking another 5 or 6, we get a second one. So as soon as we start climbing, like I said, if you want to support the channel and the podcast, you can do that. Me and Chris are going to split 50-50, of course, since he's my co-host. But yeah, great way to support the channel. Hit that join button and get to have some cool emojis. I can always change the other ones too. If you guys have ideas of what kind of emojis you want to spam in chat, let me know as well. I'll change them up for you.
Heck yeah. And also Jess put a question, so why isn't her brother recreated as well? And what does that tell us about the situation? What's the difference between dead Pietro and dead Vision? So I think she is compartmentalizing that grief as both, right? She has an affection toward her brother in a similar way that she has an affection toward to Vision, right? Not in the sense of like Luke Skywalker kissing his sister, but more in a sense of like loved ones being lost, right? And that, I think, is shown and proven in the sense that Pietro is kind of already in this, is in this situation, or in this simulation or pocket reality. Vision has never had super speed. That's not something that he had, right? Who did have super speed? Pietro had super speed. So it's like, yeah, why was that power introduced? If not to show us, hey, like she is having grief for a lot of reasons. One of those being also the death of her brother, which, yeah, I don't know. I think that could be pretty interesting.
I think what we should do too is there's such an awesome conversation. By the way, thank you everyone for joining us on Sunday. This is going to be our format on Sundays. I think it's a great time just to have it. Oh, Fairy Doom is joining the hype train, everyone. Choo choo. Thank you for that donation earlier, by the way. And I love how it turns green in chat. But yeah,
so cool.
this is something that we're going to continue. Like, this format is super cool, right? Like, we want to discuss mostly WandaVision right now, but like, I think there's going to be a lot more Marvel news. We'll talk about the Marvel movies too. And chat, like, let us know about topics. We'll try to feature more questions and comments. Like, if we couldn't get to everything in our podcast, say today, you know, maybe we can address some like cool theories that you guys have or comments and stuff like that. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Like, we can't always answer every single question that's going to be in the chat, but we'll try to dedicate like 15 or 20 minutes towards the end of the pod for that kind of stuff usually. Yeah, and now she's spamming Baby Yoda. I knew it. I knew it. She's a Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
So overall, you think this is the best? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hacks.
I was going to say, talking about the couple of adverts are her parents. I don't think they're her parents. I think that they point to definite points of her life and trauma. And we also see this. There was a picture on the wall, like an old school wallpaper of like a nice European building. And that was actually the lab where her powers were created and she was experimented on. And then the commercials, right? Like, I view that as her coping in the aspect of, you know, she's created a reality where Tony Stark didn't create bombs, he created toasters. And, you know, that being important because her parents were killed by Stark Industry missiles. And notably, her and her brother were, you know, cowering under the bed, trapped next to a giant missile with Tony Stark or Stark Industries written on the side of it. And, you know, the beeping in that commercial, right, is like that, you know, that reminder, like, hey, at any moment this could go off, this could be the end of us, and it's going to be Stark Industries' fault. And that's ultimately what led to her hatred of, you know, of that, and why she joined Ultron in the very start.
That was her reality. It's so interesting, man. Like, these commercials and adverts they're showing. First, we get the Toastmaster 2000, which it has Stark on it. They're all labeled, by the way, right? Like, we have that. Then we have the Strucker watch, and then we have the Hydra soap. So these are all. I think what's happening is this is like her reality bleeding through, like her traumas being reflected in the form of adverts, and setting up a timeline for things as well, right? Like, you know, that the missile was early on in her stages of what was going on as far as like her traumas, and then Strucker obviously got a hold of them, and then we get Hydra. You know, so it's like a progression. I'm wondering what we're going to see next. I feel like it'll be farther along the timeline. You know what I mean? Maybe it could be.
Oh, it could be, yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know what other. Maybe. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it could be anything. But
whoa! Jess says, "Dude, toasters make toast. What did Mr. Hart choke on?" Oh, that's a cool catch as well.
I will say, I think that he choked on a chocolate covered strawberry. It's really hard to see because it's black and white, and like. Yeah, like I zoomed into it 100 times and couldn't really make out what it was. But to me, it looks like a chocolate-covered strawberry, which wouldn't have been served with the other portions of breakfast, but was relevant to when, you know, when he first got, or when they first got there, and all she had prepared was a single chocolate-covered strawberry. So it was like, it felt like she was doing that. Like, she shut him up because he was asking all the questions. You know, and ultimately shut him up by using the thing that, you know, was ruined and tarnished, you know, by their presence being there, ruining this good moment that they were going to have that night that they were going to have together, you know, by way of chocolate covered strawberry.
So, yeah, I mean, there's really so much detail in this show, and that's what I love about it, because I think a lot of people were down on it after the first couple of episodes, like, hey, what's really going on here? They just trying to do this alternate reality thing, but there's much, much, much more than we know, and I think it's really, apparently the ending of the season is completely mind-blowing and changes the way we see the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it must be a pretty big damn reveal for them to say that. Like, they're not mad about that.
That would be pretty wild. And I think, like, you know, that claim reminds me of House of M, in the sense of, like, the House of M, basically Wanda, you know, grants a wish that all Avengers and X-Men are given what they desire most, and more mutants are, like, mutants aren't the the minority, they are the majority, right? And so like that shapes the entire world, and that just becomes reality for the longest time, until the conclusion of the series, where it's restored to what it was beforehand, with I think some notable exceptions. I think her children stay in the story, which would be good because Wiccan and Speed are a part of the New Avengers, and the New Avengers is something that we're going to see in Phase 4.
Yeah, the children are going to be a huge component of this show going forward. For the children has too much meaning, especially when there's no children in Westview. So yeah, we're gonna start wrapping it up here. Any awesome questions that you want to address in chat? Chris, you're also making your own WandaVision content.
Yes.
Did you drop your? I know you have a couple of breakdowns out already, and you have some theory videos. Are you dropping anything soon?
I am. Episode 4 breakdown will probably be out either tomorrow or the day after.
Nice. Yeah, I really like you had that 26-minute one, and I was just I got my popcorn, dude, and I'm like sitting down. I'm like, this is some guys. Literally, Chris is one. He has some of the best analysis, period, on YouTube. Go check him out. Okay.
Likewise, man. Appreciate that. Yeah.
This is fun, man. To team up with Hacks, he always blows my mind. So go subscribe.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's just fun talking about. It's just like such a cool thing. It's like we're storytelling apart, along with the creators of the show. It's like that's it.
This is a TV medium too. Like a lot of people were expecting, like, how is this going to translate from the big screen? And me and you talked about that privately, and I think the last episode answered that resoundingly. Like, I'm even more interested in Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, because that's going to have Baron Zemo, and that's going to have like, oh my god, like the themes of Nazis and like, terrorism, like that, right? Like that's going to be crazy.
Honestly, there's a lot of rumors that all of Phase 4 is going to be leading up to Secret Wars, which in the comic series is like, I mean, it's bigger than the Endgame. It's bigger than like anything that we've ever talked about before. And that it essentially all good guys, all bad guys go against each other in just like the most grand way humanly possible. And yeah, so if all of this does lead to Secret Wars, oh man, it would just be so good.
Invasion with the Skrulls too. That's enormous, right? Like Iron Man's gone. There's a rumor that Captain America, Chris Evans, is coming back. I find that interesting. Maybe he's coming back to play the Hydra version of Cap or something like that. I don't know if he would do that. He'd be interested.
I hope he does. I hope he does. Cool, yeah, and honestly, like Hugh Jackman is such a good Wolverine, but I think if they, I don't think he wants to do Wolverine anymore. Firstly, but with the X-Men coming into the MCU at some point, because Secret Wars includes everybody, literally everybody is in there. So however they reshape the MCU with the X-Men and with the Fantastic Four coming into it, I don't know. I hope whoever it is cast well.
It's crazy, dude. So we got WandaVision. Then right after WandaVision, we got Falcon and Winter Soldier. Okay. Then right after that, we have Loki. Then we have Marvel's What If. Then we have Hawkeye. Then we have Miss Marvel. And then we still got 4 movies. Shang-Chi is going to be nuts. Okay. That's going to, like, I'm telling you guys right now, how Black Panther was received in the United States of America and North America. That's going to be in Asia. Oh my God, dude. That's the next Black Panther. I'm telling you guys right now.
Yeah. So sad, man. Rest in peace, Chadwick.
Oh man, what a great town. It's gonna be really interesting to see what they do. They'll probably go the Shuri route, right?
I hope they do. That's the best way they can honor his story.
They're not recasting a male Black Panther.
Yeah, don't do that. The best way they can continue his story, and Wakanda forever, man. Oh, dude. The best way they can continue his story is to genuinely just show that trait of power in the younger sister and just go from there, because she's a badass. Like, she is like Dexter's Laboratory meets, I don't know, Street Fighter. Like, yeah, I love her character so much.
Amy says she's Chinese studies major. You know what we'll do is we'll do a version, maybe a bonus episode of the podcast where we do a whole thing on Shang-Chi, and we'll have Amy kind of just educate us on awesome Chinese folklore and stuff. Would you guys like to see that? Let us know in the chat. We're definitely going to have guests on, by the way. I've been talking to a couple people behind the scenes. We'll have probably Sean Tanktop on from Burlington Bar. For those of you who know the best, if you guys saw reactions for Game of Thrones, those were the reactions, okay? Sean, Maura Lee with the donation in.
Thank you so much.
All over the hype. Yeah, and I see some people in chat. I'm here because of Hacks. Thanks for coming to the channel and coming to hang out. I really appreciate that. When me and Hacks talked about it, we're like, yeah, man, Marvel pretty much brings almost everyone together. So we're excited that our communities are intermingling and hanging out and just, it's 2021. We've got to be more optimistic and positive. 2020 was a crap year. We're trying to have more fun and get more hype about stuff with all these shows. Especially, I mean, look at Marvel's just dropping like 11, 12 things this year. So,
Yeah, I'm excited for Marvel. In terms of like other series too, I'm so excited for Lord of the Rings. I think Amazon has a great possibility to get the Tolkien universe into the limelight again, and yeah,
it's going to be fantastic. And I mean, Game of Thrones is going to do their Game of Thrones extended universe. They're talking about doing animated series and stuff like that. They're going to be doing Dunk and Egg now, apparently. House of the Dragon will eventually come out whenever it comes out in Winds of Winter. I'm not even going to talk about it, okay? Just knock on wood. But, Witcher, too. The Witcher is going to have its own extended universe. Blood Origin just cast this lead character. That's going to be super cool. They're doing also a movie on Vesemir. So this year is literally going to be packed. We know everything got pushed back this year, unfortunately, man. And it is what it is. We're here now. So, yeah. Hacks, what's up with you next, my man? I see your novel in there. You doing any more writing? You're doing more videos. What's up next with you, dude?
So I'm working, of course, on WandaVision this entire season. Then probably... I really want to stay involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Depending on how the next shows come out. Right now, I'm attracted to this because it's great storytelling, but hopefully that continues. I'm going to be covering Marvel. I'm also working on another book set in a fantasy realm. It's called The Guise of Nightfall, and it's about two brothers that stuff happens to them, and they live in a fantasy world. But
come on, go check it out.
And then Cyclic on Amazon. You can find my previous work, and
Hacks Dogma on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter. Go follow. Links in the description of the video. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, man. Like, because WandaVision 30-minute episodes, and then we get Winter Soldier, Falcon, and Loki, and those are going to be about 50 minutes, 6 each, as opposed to the shorter episodes. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where they take things. This past episode was just so good, and it's what we needed that Marvel. We needed that Marvel stamp on things, and that was Marvel, man. That was just great Marvel.
Yeah, the usage of the blip to really drive that point home and remind everybody, hey, this is a part of the universe, and this is canon storytelling that needs to be paid attention to. Ooh, so good.
So, what's next for me? Tomorrow night, I will be going live with Ashaya from History of Westeros. We're going to be breaking down episodes 8 and 9 of The Expanse the night before The Expanse Season 5 finale. Great season of sci-fi so far. If you guys haven't checked out that show, go check it out. I think it's the best sci-fi show on TV other than The Mandalorian. I'm going to be dropping, there is a new trailer and sneak preview for episodes 5 and 6 from WandaVision. If you guys are interested in that, I'll probably be a little bit spoilery, but I think I got to cover that. I think I'm going to drop that tomorrow, and then I'm dropping theories on Mephisto and Agnes next week. So more WandaVisions are coming. More WandaVisions actually are coming. Wow, Kyle. More WandaVision videos are coming. It's going to be super exciting and fun to drop those. And I dropped my breakdown video yesterday talking about all of the Easter eggs that were in the video, the episode. There were so many. There was like 50. It was insane.
Oh yeah, everywhere, every
like 4 or 5 times to catch them all.
Yeah, honestly, just the hexagons. You could talk about hexagons in that episode for probably an hour.
Darren, though, if you think about it, 6 episodes is not that much. Well, if you think about it, let's say they're all 45 to 50 minutes, that's like a movie trilogy that we never would have had with Bucky Brooks and Falcon and all of them. And Loki too. Like, these characters were in movies, but they weren't the main protagonists in the movies like a Thor or an Iron Man. So if you think about it, 2 episodes, 110 minutes, 100 minutes, that's like a movie. So you're basically getting a movie trilogy with some of these series. Hopefully some of them will be longer than one season, but it looks like WandaVision is going to be just a limited series. That's cool, though, as long as the impact is good and as long as the material is getting so far. Hell yeah. It's been super fun doing this, everyone. Like I said, if you enjoyed this, Marvel Podcast episode number 3 will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next weekend, we'll be breaking down WandaVision episode 5. If there's any, of course, big Marvel news, we'll be talking about that as well. We like to mix that kind of stuff in. And yeah, feel free to subscribe, hit that join button, and find all the links to our social media in the description of the video. Let us know what you would like to hear on the podcast. Have any questions, have any awesome theories, send them to us. We'll talk about it. We love talking about everything that's up with the Marvel Universe right now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been so fun. Have a marvelous day, everyone. Be safe. See you later.
Bye.